r/AskReddit. Redditors who have walked in on their s/o cheating. What were the next 30 minutes like? No one will ever read this, but it's my first time writing it out, and it's sloppy as hell, but it felt good to get it off my chest. She went tree planting out west. I had buddies who've tree planted. I'd heard the stories. I was scared. Terrified I'd lose her, whether it was to the freedom it afforded her or the loneliness. She reassured me so well. Promised me that she'd make me feel loved, and that it would be just her, in her single tent minding her own business. I took a few days to think it out, fought through my fears, and I decided I was all in. I was in it for forever, and wasn't gonna leave anything for the swim back. So she left. We planned on moving in together when she was done in the bush, capping off the summer with a month-long adventure in Europe together. Then we'd have our own place to call home. Fuck, I loved her. The first month was actually pretty great. We'd chat every so often, and whenever she had service we'd catch up. I missed her, but I kept busy. I texted her what I was up to every day. It was like having a diary to another person, occasionally filled with mush. I was so excited about her adventures. I felt like an idiot for being so worried. If anything, I was scared about her getting eaten by bears or ripped to shreds by pneumonia. It left like this might even end up bringing us so much closer together. I felt I'd fucked up supporting her decision and wanted to support her the best I could while she was out there. About a month in, the texts slowed down. She'd skip out on chats. I thought whatever, she's enjoying herself. I didn't want to be that overbearing boyfriend. But man, fuck, it hurt having her abandon me like that. I didn't know anything about what she was doing or the people she was with, and we were the kinda team that was always checking in, sharing our days. I could talk to her about anything and everything and nothing for hours. One day I called her out on not loving me the way she promised. She said she was sorry and promised she'd do a better job. She told me about a song she'd been listening to, Home. A few days later, on a night I was missing her, I decided to find it. Blanked on the artist, and well, it turns out there are a lot of fucking songs called Home. Wasn't gonna be easy finding the one that she listened to when she thought about me out there. Then I remembered she had left her laptop at my place. If she had saved it on Spotify, I could take a listen. And then I saw the notification for the texts. That broke my heart. Tim, are you staying in my tent? I hope so. I didn't want to accuse her, because fuck. I didn't want to lose her. I'd do almost anything not to. I had written his number down before I disabled her iMessage. I knew I'd torture myself with the texts if I didn't. Looked it up on Facebook, and well, fuck me. She told me about some guy that had asked her to sleep with him a few weeks previously. She laughed it off. Told me she'd crush his heart. She crushed mine instead. Making the connections was disturbingly easy, but so was the denial. I was broken. It was like someone had paused the world and my mind was racing. The next 2 months were hell. The worst hell I've ever experienced. I felt helpless, worthless, hopeless. It was fucked. Looking back, it was like I was a completely different person. An empty shell, filled only with the thoughts of what she was doing while I laid there alone. Where she went off to after texting me goodnight. I tried to convince myself it was innocent, but I knew. Eventually I convinced myself I loved her enough that we could work through it. If she had cheated or not, she was my best friend. We could talk through anything. The loneliness must have gotten to her, but I knew she loved me. I knew there was still a forever with her. Eventually she met me in Europe. The first week was fucking phenomenal. I had her back. I felt like I had made a deal with the universe. If I bettered myself while she was out there, quit smoking, got fit, planned this awesome trip, I'd get her back. At one point in that hell, all I wanted was to have her back. Even if I'd lose her again, I just wanted one more day with her. And there she was, in my arms in Paris. But then the thoughts started to torture me. Was he lying next to her, like I was now? Did she love him? What the fuck happened out there? So I did something I'll always regret. Probably the most pathetic thing I've ever done. I went through her phone while she was in the shower. There was enough there, vague, but enough. Asking him to come over, saying they could whisper. My hands have never shaken as much as they did as I scrolled. I could barely read the fucking words. I broke down and asked her a few days later. Only told her about that first conversation I saw because I just wanted to know what was going on and I needed her to say it. I needed the truth. I needed her to just tell me the truth because without it there would never be trust. I'd forever torture myself with the idea she'd do it again and I'd never know. She lied. Said nothing happened. That she couldn't even remember that night happening. It was nothing. Fuck me. That night I couldn't sleep. I ran through every scenario I could that would let me keep my best friend in my life. I convinced myself that I could believe her lies. A few days later, she breaks down, tells me they just cuddled, she was lonely, and it gave her comfort. I looked her in the eyes and asked her if they had sex. No. If she loved him. No. She said she broke it off as soon as he started to want more. I cried a lot. What a fucking mess, ahaha. I've always been a bit emotional, mostly level-headed but still emotional. Fuck, I was broken. Another sleepless night. More scenarios, grasping at ways I could make this work. I knew she was lying. I saw the texts. No one fucking cuddles for 2 months without it escalating. But we were in Europe. There was so much more to explore, so much opportunity to find ourselves and each other again. I loved her. She was my best friend. I wanted her to be in my life forever. So I ate the lies. I bottled up my anger at what she'd done. Tried to bury it in the love I had for this magical girl who had made me happy for so fucking long. Eventually the anger caught up with me. Every time she lied, every time she told me I needed to get over it, that it wasn't a big deal, that she still loved me and chose me, it filled that fucking bottle till it overflowed. I became distant and occasionally cruel. I regret that cruelty so much. She didn't deserve it, regardless of what she'd done. But I couldn't get the love to win over that hurt. The rest of the trip was so up and down. When it was up it was incredible. When it was down I felt so empty. She moved in. When we got back, I wanted to fix things. This was our chance to be a team again. But it was the same cycle. The ups were amazing. I loved her and she loved me. We had this home together. I worked so hard to try to make it feel like our home and not just this apartment I had that she moved into. But then the lows came. She'd talk about going out west again to work and I couldn't muster up the love to be excited for her. All I could think was that I'd lose her to him or someone else again. I'd lay in bed sleepless and my mind racing. More of that stupid passive-aggressive cruelty crept in. I was so angry at her and what she did. All we had to fucking do was do that one thing we were so good at and just talk. We would have fixed everything. In the end she left me. She was pretty broken at this point. I could tell. My cruelty broke her, and I imagine the weight of the truth she was hiding so deep inside wasn't helping. I tried so hard in that last month we were together to be the guy she loved. And for a while I was. It was fucking amazing to be honest. We promised one another that we would try again someday, that we had something special. She went back out west to be a ski instructor. She'd always talked about it. I knew she needed to do it, and I promised to support her. Her leaving broke me all over again. The last few months of my life have been horrible, and in my lowest moments, the scary ones, I'd text her. She wanted space and I couldn't give it to her because the catharsis of sending those dumb fucking texts saved me. About a month ago she called me, drunk and angry. She called me out for being a piece of shit in the last few months of our relationship, and to be fair I deserved every word of it. I really am sorry for hurting her. I never wanted her to feel how I did. I broke a girl I loved, a girl who genuinely tried loving me to fix the us we had, and I'll always regret it. But in that conversation she finally admitted to the cheating. Finally. She was so cold about it too, it shook me. She added in the bonus of she was still sleeping with him now. She asked me to never talk to her again. She was having a good time, and every text was me denying her the space she needed. Every message broke her. But I was broken too, and I didn't get to run away from the hurt, didn't get to have that good time, just devastated in a half-empty apartment without my best friend and just memories of this amazing girl I loved. But I finally feel like I'm able to make sense of the last year of my life. It's like this incredible weight of lies has been lifted. I never cared about the cheating. She was lonely. The environment she was in enveloped her. It was the lies that killed the version of me she loved. I still love her. I'll love her forever. but what she did broke me. And it broke us. Someday I'll kill this fucked up hope of having her in my life again. But for now I'm okay with it. I refuse to let my bitterness take away the amazing memories I made with her. I got to experience that crazy and almost terrifying amount of love for another person, and I honestly thought I never would. We had something special. Apologies, this is going to be long, but this is the first time I can contribute to something like this, and this particular event completely changed my life. I was with a girl from the age of 15. We were both now 22, engaged and both about to finish university. We had an apartment together, and life could not have seemed better. In my final year of university I managed to pick up an internship with Sky Sports to go along with my final year of uni, studying broadcast technology, whilst she worked in the same supermarket she had worked at, and I worked at prior to the Sky Sports thing, since we had been together. One cold Sunday I was due to drive from Manchester, where I live, to London to cover a football game for Sky. It was quite early due to the length of the drive, and just as I was about to leave I got a call from my boss. They didn't need me in London now, but had a more urgent need for me in Leeds instead. This was great for me. It's only an hour drive to Leeds, rather than 4+ to London. Now usually I would have texted the girl to let her know I was going to be home earlier than expected ECT, but as the crew was already behind setting up for the FA Cup game at Elland Road, I got to the stadium and just jumped straight into working. My working day finished, I was exhausted and started the drive home. Usually I call the girl, but on this occasion my friend called me, and we had a good 45-minute conversation about everything and anything like friends do. I then pulled into my apartment parking and saw in my spot a guy's car. Let's call him James. James worked with me and the girl at the supermarket, and I had known him for years, been on several nights out with him, and many times he had crashed in our spare room after a night out. He was not someone I would class as a friend, more of a work colleague who I got along with. I saw his car and I just knew what I was about to walk into. I had been told, since I left the supermarket, that the flirting had become worse between them in work, but I had 100% trust in this girl. We were together for 7 years ago and just ignored it. I put it down to them just being friendly with each other, and I'm the least jealous person I know. Having 3 sisters, I know that girls can be seen as flirting a lot when in essence they can be just being nice. I parked my car in a visitor spot and began what felt like the longest 3-story climb up the stairs until I got to my front door. I slowly opened my front door and could see the main bedroom door had its door shut, but with the lamp on. As I got closer to the door I heard them. The sort of noises that you can imagine due to the nature of this thread. I could have turned around then. I could have just left, and that would have been that, but for some reason I opened the door. I stood in the doorway for what felt like an eternity as I watched my fiancé, the love of my life, literally bouncing on another man's dick in my bed. I still remember the image clear as day nearly 6 years on. It felt like I was stood there for an hour watching, when it was only a few seconds in reality. That's when I knew I had a choice to make. Option 1. Go into the room and absolutely kill the guy who I was at the time putting all the blame on. And trust me, I would have killed him. He was a scrawny 19-year-old guy who still lived with his parents. It would not have been much of a fight and I would have done some serious jail time. Option 2. Walk away. I chose option 2. I left, got in my car and drove to my older sister's house, who lived maybe 20 minutes away, told her what had happened, and sat on her couch. She went back to my flat to kick her out, but by the time she got there they had both left. She was told via text she had 24 hours to get her stuff and never go back. I wish that was the end of the story, but there is a slight additive I need to make. I was still angry for a long time. She told people after the breakup she wasn't happy for a while as a form of justification, and was happy in her new relationship. Yes, they got together immediately. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. I was angry. I had rage. I was living back with my mum. Stopped going to uni. All I could think about was why. I gave this girl everything I could. Now she was playing happy families with this new guy. I felt like I was the only one who was hurting in this entire situation. Foolishly I found out through a friend of a friend where James lived, so a solid 2 weeks after this incident I decided I had to do something to him. He was the cause for all my pain. So I smartly took a friend with me under the premise that he doesn't let me kill him or do too much damage. I would have been satisfied with one punch. I knocked on the door and stepped to the side a little. He had a big glass door, so he would have seen me if I stood in front of it. He opened the door and I remember grabbing him by his jumper and pulling him out of the doorway. This was it. He was going to get what he had coming right now. He opened his mouth and the following words came out of his mouth. "Please don't hurt me. The girl promised you were not going to hurt me." I stopped and looked at this guy cowering, loosened my grip on him, and laughed into his face. Him saying that was enough for me. I felt quite sorry for him. There is many more things I could tell about how I coped in the immediate aftermath of this, including the argument I had with her father about the rent on the flat, me now being banned from that supermarket chain for life, so on and so forth. However, I will only get into that if people are genuinely interested. 7 years later, I have never been happier. Girl is still with James last I heard, and still working at the same supermarket. She never finished uni. I have seen her once in 7 years. She tried coming on to me when she was very drunk, when we ended up in the same bar once. I drank my drink and left without even acknowledging her. Wife for 6 years got a new job in medical device sales and was out of town for 3 weeks straight for training. The first 2 weeks went okay, but she had never traveled before, so it was difficult on both of us. I have several friends who work in the industry, and they all pretty much paint the same picture. Lots of alcohol, lots of hooking up. It's okay, not my wife. She would never. But the next time we spoke, she could tell something was wrong. She had been talking about this guy quite a bit in our conversations, so I asked about him. Oh, he's nobody. Just another rep from another state in training with her. Regardless, that afternoon I got a text from him explaining that my wife had told him that I was asking about him, and he decided to text me to reassure me that he was married, had 3 kids, nothing was going on. I bought it, and then, the night before she comes home, it happens 4 AM, I get a phone call from her, but in my slumber I sent it to voicemail. She was absolutely wasted and had drunkenly dialed my phone instead of his and left a voicemail. The voicemail consisted of explicit details of their sexual encounters that week, and since they will be traveling together in the future, the continuation of more sexual encounters were promised, including details on how she loved it when he did X to her Y and Z. I got out of bed, walked down the hallway to our daughter's rooms, 2 and 4 at the time, grabbed both of them, and brought them to bed with me. I held them tight while they slept on each side of me while I cried the remainder of the night, not for me, but for them, because their world was going to get turned upside down in less than 12 hours from now. I then got out of bed, logged onto her computer, and, after a little investigative sleuthing, I forwarded every iMessage, every picture as well as the voicemail she drunkenly sent me to his wife. Edit. Holy RIP inbox. So to clarify a few things, this is a throwaway account, so any questions regarding 5-day-old account, etc. are because of that. First of all, thank you for the support, fellow Redditors. This happened a while ago, and I've moved on. It still hurts. I still haven't come to trust anyone fully yet, but really I have no interest. I'm only 36, so I'm just having fun working on being a better me. Regarding paying support, even though she makes twice I do, I pay support because it's my duty to my kids, regardless what she makes. I'm not hurting for cash, not by any means, and neither is she. And yes, the court system is heavily flawed and biased towards mothers. In cases like this, the girls should be living with me. Late to the party. Fian K, now ex, we've been engaged for 3 months at that point, and living together for 1. I had a gut feeling that something wasn't right. He was being very shady with his phone to the point of taking it with him when he was taking his lenses off. Suddenly he had 1 day off in the week instead of 2 as usual. One night I remember him walking in the room from work with the guilt-less look on his face. I knew deep there that he was doing something, I just didn't know what, and he was good at covering and lying, so I thought I'm being jealous and insane. One night he left his phone on his side and fell asleep on mine, so I made the decision that I'll go through it and confirm to myself that it's all in my head. Instead I saw messages from him and the girl where she confesses her love to him. Tells him to choose between us 2 because apparently he loved/wanted us both. He said that something that happened before can't happen again, and that he wants only me. She mentioned that it's not her first time, to get involved with a taken man. Funny thing is that I always told him that if he wanted to sleep with other girls we can talk about it, and I was totally up for the lifestyle. When I saw the messages, my heart was pounding. My entire body was shaking from the adrenaline, my ears were buzzing, my vision was blurred, and I kept yelling at him, "What did you do?" He woke up, realized what I've discovered. I threw the rings, engagement and a promise ring, that he's not going to be a shithead, at him while he was begging me not to. I desperately wanted to calm down from the adrenaline, but I just couldn't. I've never felt so betrayed in my life by another person, and by my own body. This was a guy that I saw myself get old with. I wanted to raise children with him. I loved him with my body and soul. It felt like my entire world is falling apart in front of my eyes. I never thought that I'll blame another person, but so, if they are cheating, but I 100% think she's a piece of shit for getting involved with an engaged man. A lot of things happened after that where I discovered an entire web of lies from him, but that's another story. Honestly though, looking at it now, as weird as it sounds, it's a good thing that it happened. It taught me a lot of valuable lessons, main being to always listen to my gut feeling. The guy that I'm seeing now is so much better for me, respects me and treats me amazingly. I trust him more than I've ever trusted anyone, because he's so open and honest about everything. He makes me feel safe and secure in our relationship. He spends most of his time surrounded with other girls. I've literally seen girls hitting on him, but I don't doubt him at all, because deep there I know he has my back. I didn't catch them in the act fortunately, but just recently got confirmation that my girlfriend was cheating. My now ex-girlfriend is in the process of being put on probation due to an at-fault accident while on a suspended license / uninsured. She didn't follow the necessary steps leading up to her probation beginning and was put in jail for a month. While in jail her phone was called by her ex 160+ times in the first 2 days, and I knew that wasn't right. Her phone was locked, so I couldn't just access her texts, but I remembered that she was logged into Snapchat and Pinterest on my iPad, and I took a look. There were months of conversations, pictures and all kinds of other romantic musings to be found. It turned my stomach and made me feel about 2 feet tall knowing the girl I had loved and supported through a number of trying times, including addiction, depression, crippling anxiety, multiple job losses, etc. over the last 4 years could just wantonly hurt me like that. I ignored her calls for a few days to regain my composure and decided that I'd just play out the line and break up with her because of it all, after having one more wild night after she'd been gone for a month. Fast forward to her release, we have that great night and fall asleep with her cuddled up to my chest, and I woke up having lost a tremendous amount of my resolve. Then she decides to call the other guy while she thinks I'm in the shower, and I'm instantly infuriated again, break up with her and throw her out on the spot. That was 17 days ago, and it's still pretty raw, even after all the hard evidence I presented, or the fact that I walked in while she's planning to meet him. She still doesn't have the balls to just admit it. Instead she says she just talks to him because I'm emotionally unavailable, and that they always make dates like that but never meet, etc. It's all bullshit. Some days I wake up hating her guts, and every time I see her text / call me, I want to lash out. Other days I miss the hell out of her and want her back. I find myself annoyed by her contacting me at this point, but also annoyed when she doesn't contact me. I'd really like to just block her number, but all of her stuff is still at my house. I'm certain I didn't handle things properly by having my one final night with her when I had every intention of ending things with her, but damn. Certainly not as brutal a situation as many of you have endured, but it fucking hurts regardless. His side chick called me on a Friday afternoon to let me know she was pregnant. She had turned 18 months before and was still in high school. He and I were 30. She was very proud of herself, letting me know she would be moving into his home when she told him the great news. I was so shocked that I politely congratulated her. I really just couldn't process the information for the duration of the phone call, which lasted less than 3 minutes. And yes, she spoke like your stereotypical ill-mannered redneck princess. I was active duty at the time and stationed in Georgia, near the Alabama state line. He was a fairly good mechanic and a member in a local MC. I drove to his place and made myself at home like I usually did on the weekends. We'd been dating for over a year, so I stopped at the grocery store on the way to pick up stuff for dinner. He came home to a steak dinner and me doing paperwork at the coffee table. He asked me what I was working on. I told him that I was working out his financial solvency for the next 18 years. Yes. See, that white trash you've been putting it to? She's about to drop a litter for you, big guy. I wonder, will your brothers in the MC be alright with you sporting your colors for her prom? Of course he didn't say anything. He finished his meal while I worked out the numbers and neatly packed my things I had been keeping there. I had finished doing up his accounts by the time he had put my things in my car. I loved up on his puppers and handed him his budget. Blue folder will show you my math for your personal finances. You're fucked within a year of her giving birth, because this county says she now can lay a claim against the property this house is built on. The green folder is for your shop. Interesting stuff. Einstein. If you're gonna scam on your taxes, make sure your girlfriend isn't an accounts auditor. Or better yet, don't stick your dick in fertile crazy. I've already emailed this to the fraud division of the eyes. Tell the boys at the clubhouse you can't be there tonight. You need to go over to that girl's house and try to come up with a plan that won't completely fuck that kid she's going to spawn for life. And that if you ever date a woman out of your league again, please remember not to insult her by stepping out on her with cheap trash. If you plan to cheat, you move up the ladder, not down. Hope she was a great lay, dude. Because it's gonna cost you a couple $100,000 over the next decade if she's as pro-life as you are. In the 90 minutes I was in that house while he was home, he spoke a total of 15 words, tops. I later found out his MC kicked him out for trying to bring her to the clubhouse for open events after they banged her for underage drinking. And sure enough, she got him taken to court for his house. It's been 10 years since all this happened, and it still irks me that I got cheated on with white trash. I might be a New York 5 and an LA 3, but I'm a goddamn Columbus, GA10. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe the channel.